got the first ISO. So Gabe, do you want to go ahead? You're on mute.
Sorry, not used to that. Welcome to Keenan O'Keefe. He's the new senior product manager for the Agile Portfolio Management Group. He'll be taking over that, which handles epics, roadmaps, and the big picture planning stuff. So welcome, Keenan. Do you want to introduce yourself or say hi?
Hey, everybody. Like Gabe said, I'm Keenan. I'm super excited to be here and be part of the team. Apologize for the stuffiness. The pollen count in Colorado is super high this week, so it was kind of getting on top of me. Do I just need to go through the 3 items like I did for the last call?
You don't have to. You just, yeah. I mean.
Oh, anyway, cool. Yeah, so I'm based out of Denver, Colorado. So if you end up out here, make sure you let me know. Be good to introduce people to the mountains when they come out here. But yeah, I'm 50% mountain man, 50% nerd. So it's an interesting combo that makes life pretty fun. Married, 2 dogs and a cat. Just super excited to be here. Like, let's get some work done.
Cool. Welcome, Keenan. Really glad that you joined. Just a super minor thing, Gabe. The group is portfolio management, and the thingy within that, the category, is Agile Portfolio Management, because they're not allowed to have the same names. That's one of the rules.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
But one's got Agile in front, so it's okay. That's gaming the system right there. Speaking of names, so team planning is now project management. I've created an MR to rename things on the team page and stuff. Gabe, did you want to speak a little bit more to that as well?
Yeah, sure. So I linked to the original issue where this was being discussed, but the gist is we were working on the category vision for project management, and it was difficult to nail down the maturity level and what we needed to do and what the next steps were. So in trying to bring clarity to that, it made more sense to just more or less like issue tracking became a new category that's going to take over a lot of stuff that was technically in project management, and then project management's the group name. But long and short, the scope is exactly the same. There's nothing that's moved out. There's nothing that's moved in. There's no structural changes other than some naming things to try to bring a little bit more clarity to what we're doing. If that makes sense.
Just a note on that as well. I've noticed some people adding issues that aren't related to project management or team planning to that label. And I think the confusion is that sometimes people think, I want to manage a GitLab project. So that's project management, but that's not like project management as a discipline. That's like managing a GitLab project. So like sometimes you'll see that when it should probably be somewhere in manage or something. So just so you know. Gabe, if you wanted to talk about workflow labels.
Yeah, so this past week, I think, Sean, when you were out, we were using a set of generic validate labels that were trying to align with the product development flow, and they got hijacked by a specific group, I believe, fulfillment. And we can either go through and create all of our own labels for our specific stage that are plan related if we want to do that, or we can try to create something more generic, or we can try to set up some sort of a triage policy with the tools that we already have at GitLab and what the triage group is using that would help groom our kind of different lists for us automatically. And I just wanted to have a general discussion around how we wanted to approach that. The ideal would be to hopefully have some set of single scope labels that would work across all of our different lists and like workflow stages. And then also some tools that would help us keep those labels up to date, because not everybody looks at the Kanban board and drags stuff around, and so like that's fine. But I also noticed, Sean, you followed up with a couple people asking them to change labels and those sort of things. So I didn't know if a triage policy would help, and I guess I just wanted input and feedback.
So what happened with the validate labels, just so I get the context there?
Somebody updated the label names and scoped them specifically to the fulfillment group. So now they're fulfillment validate problem instead of just like the generic things.
So yeah, would it be possible to undo what they did and just go back to the generic scope labels?
We can create generic scope labels. I'm fine doing that. I'll just create separate ones and like say don't change these. I talked to the triage group already and asked them like what the deal was and if there was any policies around changing labels. And there's not an explicit policy right now at GitLab about who can change labels and who can't technically, but they said that maybe it would be a good idea for them to become the keeper of the labels. And so we had a brief conversation about if it would make sense to build like, protected labels or something like that as a feature into the product itself to prevent this from happening. But yeah, I'm fine going back to generic labels. If that's what we opt to do, then I will go create those fresh labels, and then I will update all the existing labeled items with the correct labeled items because we have bulk update now. So
yeah, I think that's probably the smallest initial change, and then if that's still not working, we can try something else basically. So I'm guessing fulfillment made them scoped because they wanted to have only one of the fulfillment, like validate, fulfillment, problem validation, fulfillment, solution validation, fulfillment, whatever labels on an issue. Is that right?
I'm guessing. I don't know what their process is, but like our issue boards are scoped to our stage, so we don't need that like extra identifier in front of the labels. But maybe
no, I agree. Yeah, I think that this is like the small primitives thing, right? We provide these small primitives, and then it's like you could assemble them in a bunch of different ways. So like the way that works for us might not work for fulfillment or whatever. So I think Annabelle's suggestion's the boring solution to get us like unblocked there.
Okay, I'll handle that.
Okay, I was gonna say that'd be great because for our UX OKR, we're tracking using those generic labels, just solution validation and problem validation. That the entire UX team is supposed to use. And then in addition, if each individual stage wants to use their extra scope labels, that's good too, but we're all supposed to be using the same generic ones. So if they're not already recreated, I'm guessing someone will.
Okay. Would it be helpful to anybody too, just as a follow-up, and I'm happy to take this on to work on a triage policy to help us keep our labels up to date with our workflow? I mean, just as like an added step, it's a project I can work on over the next few weeks.
I think that makes sense. So would it be to like that you can't have like a workflow label plus something else that doesn't make sense for that label, like a validate label or whatever?
That, and also like if there's a way that we can work within the existing functionality in the triage gem to see like if somebody's started an issue and they haven't updated the labels, to go ahead and update that label for them at night when it runs once a day, those sorts of things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's not a high priority from my perspective, but it does sound useful. Yeah.
Cool. Next item, as of 12.2, there's a new release post contribution process. We're trying to do it more changelog style. So like all of the work doesn't stack up the day or two before the release post. And so with that, we have to submit a merge request to the www repo with our changes, and there's like a merge request template now that lists out what you need to do and like what you need to include. And I'm happy to do all those, but like what sort of process do we want to like have in place to ensure that we kind of do that as part of the done completion criteria of the features that are going to go into the release post, like when we merge that MR. So we don't wait till the last day to do it. We kind of do it continuously as we merge completed features. Do we want to add a label? Do we want to add like a done criteria to like the issue description, or do you have any ideas?
So we've got Martin, Brett, and Alexandru and Kushal, I just noticed as well on the call, who are all like individual engineers sort of working on features. And we've also got Scott, but Scott's obviously recently joined. So any of you have any thoughts on like what makes most sense from a workflow perspective for getting those items added? Okay, I see a shrug from Martin.
Adding workflow labels is fine, but to be honest, I have been forgetting it quite a lot while starting on any new issue. And most of the times what happens is that I'll be switching context between two major features. Like for past two releases, I've been working on the Epix dropdown as well as the drag and drop MR. So if both are work in progress and both are in development as per the workflow labels, then it kind of makes it difficult for anyone to visualize what exactly is being actively developed upon and what is going side by side. So those are the only problems. But I think I'm all in for adding workflow labels. So that makes sense.
Could we start with like a weekly sweep or something, maybe just like as a like boring manual process, and then see how we can improve that once we've started it that way? Because we deploy weekly anyway, right? Like more than weekly sometimes, but like that should catch new stuff that's made it to GitLab.com, for instance.
You mean focusing on one task for 1 week and then doing another task?
Oh no, sorry. I mean for like Gabe and engineering managers, like, you know, once a week, somebody going through and taking a look and seeing what's been like closed lately or been merged lately, and just going through and making sure those are updated. It's not particularly sophisticated, but
I think that would be fine to start. And like I said, I don't mind doing the MRs for the features to get them into the release post and filling out all the content. It's just like sometimes it's difficult for me to see everything that is done. But I think that's just still me getting used to the workflow that we have and like how to keep up with everything. So manual boring is great for a first step.
Is it possible just to use the in-verification labels? I mean, because anything that we get merged should move into that category until it's verified in production, which is at least takes 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, that's a good idea, just to go through that list maybe like every few days and double check. I think that would be fine. I think maybe we use the feature label too, so maybe if we just have a feature label, that will be a good reminder to double check on that. I'm still trying to get a good feel for what to include in the release post and whatnot. So I'm fine doing that, and just I guess I'm bringing this up to help remind me if I don't catch something, you know.
Yeah, that was my question. Are these only things that are labeled as features or deliverables then that we're wanting to do this on?
Yeah, there's a conversation about deliverables and feature labels and direction labels and all that stuff, I think, in the product channel in Slack. And I don't know if we've been using the deliverable label lately. So maybe we should start using that more.
We haven't been. We were just using the board priorities. But then that does mean that if you look at like some of the charts that say like number of deliverables shipped 0, number of deliverables missed 0. So it's not like there's sort of assumptions in some of the charts that the engineering productivity team have created that don't really match with how we've been working. But I think it's fine to add that back if we want to as well.
I don't have a strong preference. I think the way we're doing release planning is slowly shifting to be more continuous. I know there's a big conversation going on. I'm not participating, but I am aware of trying to move things to have like a kind of more continuous model where the release post becomes just a function of what is done in a given 4-week span instead of like doing all this crazy upfront planning and pushing it the last minute. So we'll see how that goes. But unless somebody asks us to use a deliverable label, I don't really care.
Cool. Sounds good to me. Okay, so yeah, we could start with doing this manually. Another thing we could do is actually like we get these triage packages through the triage ops thing, and we could also like see about creating those for like things that are in workflow verification or were closed during the last week for people to like make sure that the release post and stuff is updated. But that would be in the future if we figure out that doing this weekly works or whatever.
Okay, sounds good. Next item is mine, and I just wanted to know, last week you weren't here, Sean, and I don't think Donald was, and there wasn't a ton to talk about, so it didn't last that long, which is fine. But is there anything that we want to do, or does anybody have any suggestions of how to add a little bit of structure or flow to like this planning meeting where it's something that helps us all stay on the same page and get aligned with what we're working on or where we're going? So I just bring this up. I come from doing weekly iterations where we do release planning or like planning meetings once a week to talk about what we're getting done as a team and what we want to commit to. I didn't know something like that would be helpful to run through the board, or maybe we like it this way. I just kind of wanted to open up and see if anybody had any ideas or input.
I don't want to take over the conversation here because I know it's been you and me talking a lot so far in this call, but I do have a couple of things. So first of all, I think the structure and flow would be nice to consider like how we can marry like having a call with asynchronous conversations, because obviously not everybody on the team is in a time zone where they can make this call or any call. Like, you know, there's not a call where we can have everybody in the group join. Also, when we split the groups, so like, you know, John joined and Keenan's just joined as well. We decided to keep this as one meeting, but we might decide that we want separate meetings as well. Like obviously for people like Annabelle and Donald, they would still have to attend both. But for those of us who are just focused on team planning or project management or portfolio management, you know, that might be a good way to scope it down too. So those are just some considerations I'd like to add there, but I'm very curious to see what other people think as well. I also like the recent change you made to the company call where it was in sort of sections. So like, you know, it was grouped by not who put something on the agenda in what order, but grouped sort of by topic. Like, you know, these are announcements, these are other updates. You know, you could add more sections for stuff like that as well. John, you've joined a couple of these now. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't have any specific suggestions yet because I don't have enough context around it. Like every one of these I've been to has been quite different. That's only 2 so far. So. But I did watch the other ones before I joined, and yeah, look, I'll keep an eye out for ways we could add structure to it, like in terms of like things that we could do that would be helpful, especially probably for Keenan and myself as well. But I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, would also like to hear from like the greater team too, like because this should be mostly for the benefit of the members of both project management and portfolio management groups. So anyone else, like what would you all like to see out of this meeting? I know we actually had talked about somehow getting demos in a meeting. I don't know if a synchronous meeting like this is the best platform for those demos. Maybe if we could, I don't know, add some videos or recordings and have some demos, I think that would be helpful. Or that, anyone else have any other thoughts on what you would like to see out of this weekly meeting?
I like the idea of separating like workflow versus technical issues, just because I feel like that would help me get in the right mindset.
Yeah, I like separating by topics as well. The only thing, the rest I'm just fine with it.
Yeah, I'm happy with the meetings in general and the schedule of them and stuff. It would be nice to see if planning has any specific priorities in terms of the upcoming work that they're looking at. Just to keep us a little bit more in the loop on that.
Yeah, Gabe actually wrote out a narrative for the next 3 or 4 releases somewhere. I don't know if you can find that quicker than I can, Gabe. But I thought that was very useful to way of sort of thinking about like what way for me to understand what you're thinking about like going forward as like top priorities.
I did write that out. I'll have to find it somewhere. But yes, I think that would be helpful to think about and to add. So we should do that next week.
I think that actually as we split the team and engineers start to work on different things, it might be good to have a forum where we do demo some stuff. The thing is, like, it's very hard to think of anything that can't be done better asynchronously than in the meeting. Like, but there may be some value in that because after a couple of releases, like if we split the team like dogmatically, then it's quite possible people on portfolio management won't have an idea of what's been going on in project management and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's a reason we decided to like not split any meetings initially as well, because we figured we'd wait till a point where they we felt like we needed to split them, but we wanted to like default to just having the broader conversation as much as possible, and keeping people in the loop as much as possible. Anybody else got any thoughts on that? Like how they like to see this structured, or what they think, anything they think we're missing, or anything they think they'd want to see more of? All right.
Maybe we continue. Sorry, real quick, Sean. Maybe we continue this discussion in MR. I think we have somewhere defining that we have weekly meetings. Maybe we can all, especially for the people that aren't here right now, but if we can comment on ideas or thoughts to structure and additions to this meeting in MR, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's also really useful because we get input from people who don't join the meeting but watch the meeting, and the structure of the meeting is also very useful for them, like even if they're not able to attend. So yeah, that's a good point. I'll create an MR. Martin, you're up next.
All right. So Alexandru and I found a possible pain point or confusion point regarding ordering, specifically ordering by priority. So I wanted to see, like, get your feedback and see what the general consensus is, like what you expect to see out of the app. Basically on GitLab.com, if you order issues by priority, it gives you a higher priority first, lower priority later, and indeterminate priority last. So the question is, oh, and you can't flip the order. So you can't get low priority first on top of the list. So the question is, do we call this a descending or ascending order for the purposes of an API that allows you to sort by priority? And does it make sense to expose both orders in the public API? So this is a thing that's difficult to change in the future once we ship it. So we want to make sure that it makes sense for everyone, because I'm on one side of the fence. I think it should be descending, but I've also heard arguments for ascending as well. And there's also some like technical challenges and issues and considerations that we need to think of. So I linked an issue, and if you guys have any feedback, please leave a comment. And that's it. That's all I got.
Anyone have any instant comments?
At first I was like, it's obviously descending, and then I read the issue and I was like, oh yeah, I can see how you could say it the other way as well. Like, and now I don't know anymore. So I've got less of an opinion the more I've read about it, basically.
But it should go both ways.
So you should be able to sort by lowest priority first and by highest priority first. Yeah,
if I need to see the lowest priority stuff, I want that, or if I want the highest priority stuff. I mean, it depends upon the use case, the situation that the person they're looking for.
Yeah, I think Martin said the API does that, but the UI doesn't do that, and it's not clear why we did it that way. It probably wasn't a conscious choice that we did it that way, but that makes sense.
The other thing is we default to descending order, and we default to highest priority first. However, the way, if we put it in, if we call the default order ascending, so like by ascending index, like priority 5 is higher than 0, and you don't specify descending or ascending, it will default to the other way, if that makes sense. I'm pretty sure that in the MR, but like that's, if you're confused, you can see how it would be confusing for new users as well.
Yeah, I can confirm I am new and I am confused.
There are, like, it also might make sense for different order options to have different defaults for the direction. Because like for priority, you'd want it default to be ascending, for instance, and then for weight, you might want the default to be descending. Yeah, so, and again, all of these changes would add changes to the user if we do change it. So like the default behaviors might change. So that's something to really consider before actually making this change. Because we don't want to have users break their workflows that already kind of exist.
Okay. Any further comments? Just go into the issue. Cool. So I have the next point, front-end plan team update. It's a bit of a sad update. Martin is leaving the company at the end of the month. Like I said, it's sad. I'll let him say a word or two if he wants to give the reasons for leaving. It's just an opportunity that he couldn't pass up. Like I said, going to miss him, even though you've only been here for a few months. You've already had a huge impact on not only the front end team, not only the plan stage, but GitLab. So I'll miss you, and I'll let you say something if you would like to, Martin.
Yeah, well, if you insist. Yeah, I'll miss you guys too. I got an opportunity to do grad school in Switzerland at like one of the best schools for computer science in the world. So that is a goal that I want to do as soon as possible because it will be more difficult to do it in the future. And the stars have aligned, funny, because like it was a little bit at odds with my time at GitLab, but yeah, like there was no easy solution. But hopefully I'll see you all at Contribute because that's going to be in my neck of the woods, supposedly. And I hope to work with you guys more as a community contributor for September and onwards until I come back. So yeah, so my last day is August 30th. I might have to hand off some of my MRs to somebody. So if any of you want to like throw me a going away party, you have about a week to do it. Not hinting at anything. Just saying. All right, back to you, Donald. Who's next, Walmir?
Yeah, so on my side, just a heads up, since one of the OKRs of the quality department is to cover some task gaps in enterprise features. I'm doing my part with the planned features, and there is a board available that I linked in the document. If you want to see what we have planned, it's there in the board. There are some issues that have been completed. I'm working on a specific issue right now for milestone board lists, and there are other issues already planned for the next iterations. So that was basically that, and then I'll pass over to Kushal.
Yeah, so while this issue is more targeted towards Annabelle, but I just wanted the entire team's eyes on this. So with the drag and drop, with the complexities that we face, we decided to start with an MVC where in the tree, instead of allowing issues to be reordered, we would just allow epics to be reordered in the tree. But in the design, we are deciding to show issues alongside epics. So my question is that would it make sense from a user's perspective to have epics being reorderable while issues being there as it is? And then how does the behavior affect for rest of the tree? Like, for example, we are showing both root issues as well as root epics in the same tree in the root itself. So if we have 5 items of both, then user is able to reorder only 5 of those items. Then how does it affect the order of other items? Like I had some general confusion around the UX. So just wanted to know the thoughts of everyone who were involved in the conversation.
I'm sorry, can you, is that on the issue somewhere that I can read through it and test it out locally on the merge request?
Yes, so I have currently linked the issue in the agenda, which includes the UX proposal that we decided, where we would shift the tree and the roadmap at the top of the page while leaving the discussion part at the bottom of the page. But the tree design itself remains as it is, where we would have both issues and epics part of the same tree. And the MR that we had open when we started working on drag and drop, Yarka has added some backend to it to allow reordering. But that backend currently only supports reordering epics and not issues. So if both the items are part of the same tree, then how we can do reordering only for few items and not the others is what I'm confused about.
Okay, so you're thinking like, how do we show in the UI that you can't move items
Yes.
above a certain thing?
Yes, or whether we should move out issues to be in its own separate list, while keeping the tree behavior limited to only epics.
Right. My first impression is make sure they're still on the same list, because separating them will just be kind of what we already have. I'm wondering the smallest way to do this, if this is just a first iteration and eventually we will be able to get the full interspersed dragging and dropping, I'll need to look at this some more and think of a solution, but off the top of my head, we could do something like when you're in Finder and you're dragging files around, you know, how the cursor turns into that no, you know, what do you call it? Like a no enter sign when you can't drop it. We could do that for a first step, but I'll need to play around with it.
Yeah, because the UX confusion I had around this behavior was that imagine a list where we have 5 issues at the top of the list, followed by 5 epics at bottom. And we are saying that we will allow reordering only epics. And if user grabs one of those epics and tries to order it between the 2 existing issues, then technically we are moving around issues as well, because we are trying to drop an epic between 2 issues, which is invalid because we don't want issues to be moved around. And if they are part of the same tree, then it causes user confusion, because users would assume that why only a few items are reorderable out of the tree and why others are not.
Epics should be first always. I think we decided on that, and then issues.
Yes.
So I thought that the proposal was you can reorder epics around in their own epics group, and then you can also reorder issues around in their individual group. Is that still the case?
Okay, so what you're saying is that they remain in the same list, just that they cannot enter in each other's territory while reordering, right? Then there won't be, but still there won't be any visual separation. Then how would users know that these items are reorderable within this? Because there is no division between the two, at least from visual point of view.
Right, I gotcha. So the cursor thing might work, it might not. So if there's a merge request where I can already look at this, I can look at figuring out how to show the user that you can only reorder certain elements.
Yes, so the merge request that we created where we started working on this, it has both backend and front-end changes, just that both of them are not tied to each other now. But I'm linking it into the agenda. So you can check out this branch from this merge request. It currently allows full reordering across the list. Just that when you reload the page, order goes away because it is front-end only. So you can try it out how reordering works currently, because we are allowing full reorder support there.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and also one more thing to add there. In the original scope of drag and drop, we decided to allow parent-child relationships to be altered as well from the tree. So for example, if user is trying to drag an issue or an epic onto another epic, that would mean that we are changing the relationship with that parent epic to the entity that we are trying to drag. So now that we are deciding that we won't allow reordering between each other, they will reorder only amongst themselves, then do we still cover the parent-child updates from drag and drop?
I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm gonna have to look at if this is all written somewhere. I can take a look.
Yeah. So the MR that I will link to, it has a related issue in which we are discussing the original idea of how drag and drop needs to work. It has all the points mentioned there. Like we want to cover parent-child updates as well. Like if user tries to drag an epic within or inside another sibling parent, then it would lead to changing the parent epic for that particular item to the one where we dropped it. So that basically means like if you are using Finder and if you are trying to drag a file into a folder, then that file goes inside of that folder. So that's how we change the parent of that file. And we want similar behavior for epics and issues as well when user tries to drag items into each other.
Yeah, that sounds correct. That's exactly what we want. Is there an issue with that?
Yes. So the original issue that we have opened this MR with has descriptions for all of them.
Okay, great. I'll take a look after the meeting.
Yep, thanks. I think with that, we have no longer any other points in the agenda. I think that calls it a day.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody. It's great to speak to you all, and I'll speak to you all soon. Have a great day.
Bye.